And we are live. Hello, everybody. I'm Seth. That's Barry. And you're listening to this, Barry. And you're listening to the Social Media Addicts Podcast beta number 6. We're still beta because we're still trying to figure out what the heck we're doing.
I'm
So,
still trying to figure out the schedule. What we can do
the
is have a
schedule, I mean,
little.
Barry's, galvanizing all over the world, and I'm just busy. And so we'll figure it out. Eventually, we'll get a schedule down. So how you doing, Barry?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. So I think today we're going to talk about all these mobile messaging apps out there, both the ones that are just text messages, pretty much, but like WhatsApp and whatnot, and then the more secure ones, and then the ones that are one-time use. And we're going to talk about that and how maybe that applies to social media and how that's kind of is social media, just in a more one-to-one avenue than a one-to-many. So.
Yeah.
Shall we start, Barry?
Yeah. So we've seen an evolution, right, of these text messages. So WhatsApp was bought, right, and the big thing there was obviously it was growing in places where sort of unlimited data usage isn't as routine, right? So
Hmm.
as I understand it, I know your opinion, but as I understand it, was more of a cost play, like in Europe and that kind of thing, right? So,
Hmm.
and now some of these apps that are coming along now they seem like they're all attacking the same issue, this issue of privacy,
Hmm.
and so I think of it in terms of why, right? So obviously that's a burning issue with people. People have different motivations for why they want to keep their messaging private, right?
Yeah.
But then, I also think it from a commerce perspective is how does it not only impact personal communication, but how does it impact communication with brands, right? From a commerce perspective, what
Hmm.
are they going to do in response?
Yeah, look, a lot of times now, even with WhatsApp, which is not exactly private, but it's still one to one. It's me IMing Barry or me talking to so and so.
Hmm.
And it's more like text messaging, but avoiding the SMS fees, especially in Europe where people in England text, France, and they're getting completely hit over the head with massive fees. So that's why it's more popular in Europe or elsewhere in the world than it is in the United States. But we're also seeing the ephemeral, I think that's the word ephemeral, marketing of these, well, the marketing of these ephemeral apps where it's one-time use. You send out a message, the person reads it, and then it's gone. It's gone. It's poof. Bye bye. And like there's ones like Cyberdust, which is put out by Mark Cuban's mobile app company. What a surprise! He's a mobile app company. Um, and and then there's other ones like Confide is another one where you have to click your finger across to read the message. You can't screen cap the message, so there's no way to really get the screen cap, which you could get on Snapchat. You could take a screen cap, so it's not exactly ephemeral. Whereas if you look at the Confide, it is because you can't screen cap it because you have to have your finger on that dot under that word to see that word, which is
Yeah.
really neat.
Yeah.
The thing with Confide is it's only text. Whereas Cyberdust is coming out for Android soon, but it's for iPhone now. It's going to be multimedia. It's going to be all multi-voice, video, all kinds of stuff. It's going to be really neat. But it's one-time use because when you think about it, like me talking to Barry now, yeah, it's being recorded, but if our conversation right before this podcast, there's no record of it. I mean, maybe the NSA is listening in and there is a record of it, but generally speaking, like, when I talk to Barry on the phone or I talk to Barry, here, good example, I talk to Barry in person, unless someone's singing over me with a microphone or Barry's recording it, it is ephemeral. It's, I think I'm using that word right. Am I using that word right, ephemeral?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
I'll have to look it up later. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. Um, below. But if you think about it, it's more like conversational. We don't keep every conversation we have with each other in real life,
yeah.
but
So
through
do you
text
think?
messages you
So do you
do.
think Seth, um, it's more to satisfy that need as opposed to more of the I don't want to call it sinister, but is it just well, there's two benefits, right? But I mean,
Hmm.
is it just really a drive or a demand for people to have an app that just more closely reflects in-person communication, or is it really that people are looking for ways to communicate, um, you know, under the wire where maybe they, stuff shouldn't be recorded? It's like, and forgive me, I don't know who's listening, but it's like the old and the mobster movies, right? As you see, the guys are in the social club and they go outside on a sidewalk to have a conversation because they know it's not being recorded. So is it just that, hey, I want to talk live, and again, like you said, when you and I have a conversation, we have a conversation and it's over, or is it really that people
I
have something
think,
to hide so that you know what I mean?
yeah, I think it started with the whole idea of keeping things private. It's all started with the NSA and making things ephemeral, making them so that they're one-time use and that's it, and more for privacy oriented. I think now it's branching into the fact that wait, we realize, wait a second, yeah, we want privacy, but wait, talking on the street, talking to the person one on one is once and done anyhow. Unless you're taking notes, you're recording it. So when you think about it, why can't we do this in real life? Why can't we do this in technology? So I think it started out as privacy. It started out as I wouldn't say sinister, but I'd say it started off more like it started off with more of a privacy slant. Now it's more like, well, what's real life like? Why do we have to keep every message that Barry sends me? Why do I have to keep every message? Like, why does that have to stay in my inbox taking up space? Why can't it just be like, I'll be there in 10 minutes? Why do I need to keep that? Or are you ready for the podcast? Why do you need to keep me writing that to you? So it's like it can just be one time use and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because it's just from a data overload perspective too. There's a benefit there, right? Because again, you go through your list of SMS, and
Oh my god.
I mean, I find myself cleaning that stuff out all the time, right? So yeah, it doesn't take a long time, but it's just something else to do, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just another sort of
Inbox
data
zero.
to manage. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. And when you think about it,
absolutely.
this is forced inbox zero if you think about it, because you don't get
Yeah,
to keep it.
yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. And so when we talk about brands, right? So that just it made me think, right? One of the issues that we've always heard with some of the brands that you and I have worked with is
mm-hmm.
how do you they've been reluctant to implement SMS as a service channel because it's from a workforce perspective, it's hard to measure productivity and utilization and all those kind of things that
Mm-hmm.
the sort of the customer service is measured on, because again it can be a never-ending conversation, right? It can be
Boom,
you
boom,
you
boom, boom, boom,
SMS
boom.
me on an issue and you have a question for me and I answer that question, and you can come back a week later and say, oh yeah, by the way, what about this? And they've always struggled with with a phone call. It's easy. The start and stop is easy. The start is when you pick up the phone. The end is when you hang up the phone. If you call
Mm-hmm.
back again, that's another interaction, right? But it's this never-ending interaction, and so brands have sort of struggle with that in terms of the operational part of that. So I don't know if there's an answer there, or it's just a comment that I think that adds another wrinkle in terms of, I don't know whether it's a benefit or a negative to brands using text messaging, but it's definitely a different wrinkle, right?
Yeah, the thing about text messaging is that text messaging. This is very profound. Text messaging is text messaging. It's universal. The text is a text. The problem with
Mhm.
all these apps out there is that Confide doesn't talk to WhatsApp. WhatsApp doesn't talk to Telegram. Telegram doesn't talk to CyberDust. And it's all different protocols. So you
Yeah.
have to have the app to use the app, to talk in the app. If I want to write Barry in Confide, I'm not going to get him over in Telegram. If I want to write him in Telegram, I'm not going to get him over in Text Secure. I'm
Mm.
rambling all these things off. My brain's about to explode. The amount of text apps I have on my computer, my
Mm.
phone right here. It's incredible what I have on this thing. This,
Mm.
the different areas. I mean, I think I've had Barry sign up for like 15 different ways of communicating with Barry. So I have to get in touch with Barry. Which one do I use to talk to him on? Which features do I want to use? It's just ridiculous. But whereas with
No, you're right.
text,
And
text is
so that's
text.
a great point, right? So when when this space hits critical mass, and I don't know if it has now or if there's still
There's still more
more
room. There's
room
still more
for,
room.
right? So when it hits critical mass, that's interesting. Who's gonna develop the universal platform
Hmm.
that communicates across all these different apps, right?
Like XMPP.
You know someone's gonna try and do that, right?
Yeah, well, before Google Hangouts was XMPP, was the universal for chatting. And I mean, AOL used XMPP, and you get this app, you could get Trillion or any number of platforms that could read XMPP. You can use a bunch of different handles with that. But one thing I've also noticed is that even with social media in general, is the operational aspect of it, and whether or not you can actually, if someone Facebook messages you, when is the end of that conversation? When does that end? Does it end, or can they come back to you 5 minutes later? So you gotta look at it based on an issue. Was this issue solved? That's the end of the message.
Hmm.
And then if it comes back again with another issue, that's another issue. That's another instance.
Hmm.
And maybe that's the way to think about it with text messaging, is that if they say, thank you, well, that thank you is the end point. They can still text message you again saying, well, what about this? Well, that's another issue. So I
Yeah.
don't really know if there's. I don't think we're going to solve this issue. Jeez, can I say the word issue enough? I'm not sure if we're going to solve this on a podcast, but it's kind of interesting. How brands still haven't got a grasp on social media, let alone text messaging, and then these weird sites, sort of text messaging, sort of James Bond, sort of quirky, sort of like almost novelty apps. I
Mm.
mean, like Snapchat is a novelty app.
It is.
It's novelty. I mean, brands are using it, and they're coming up with good ways of using it, like sending out discount codes and stuff to their followers. But it's kind of intriguing and kind of confusing how they're using it. Whereas with text messaging, it's cut and dry. Social media is cut and dry for the most part. Different. Like Twitter is different from Facebook, which is different from Google Plus. Each community is different, but social media is generally what it's one to one, one to many. It's depending on what part of the platform you use. Whereas these little apps, they're all weird and different selling points. I'm not sure how brands are going to use them.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting too from an analytics perspective, right?
Oh
So
God.
brands start to use stuff like Snapchat. Okay, so how do you measure the success of that campaign? If I mean, or how do you don't you can't pull back any analytics because it's gone, right? I mean, that's the
Hmm.
way I understand this. So it's this black hole. So how do you measure the return on investment in that channel, right?
It's crazy, But I mean, it is ephemeral. It is kind of once and done. But if you give them a coupon code, I'm giving away all my secrets. If you give them a,
Yeah.
if you give them a coupon code that is based on Snapchat, like Snapchat One, then we can track that and say, oh, this is how many people use this coupon code.
Hmm.
But that's being said, they can also give it to their friends. Friends could have used it. There's a lot of margin of error there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have we
That's it.
exhausted this topic?
I think we have because there's I don't think there's a lot of answers to it, but there's
Mhm.
it opens up a whole another level of questions about sort of what's the I, I think my opinion is the general issue is how much what's innovation versus what's
Mhm.
just stuff for stuff's sake, right?
Stuff for stuff's sake.
And
Very profound.
yeah, right. And then from an investment perspective too. I mean, how many of these different types of apps are going to continue to get funded
Hmm.
if they're just kind of taking stuff almost to the extreme, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's the big issue.
Hmm. I guess
What
we'll have
kind
a
of legs?
report back when Barry Post is confined a little bit. I mean, I can see
Yeah,
how
that's right.
I can see how sending your wife a love note through Confide might be handy.
Yeah, yeah,
Saying hey, beautiful, but like I'd say
yeah,
kind of like secret messages under the desk. But even they weren't ephemeral. I mean, this could be posted on a blackboard. This is kind of a little bit different, but who knows?
yeah,
But I guess that this should just be a short podcast this week. So
yeah.
don't you think you'll make it nice and short? If you want to support us, if you see over here, help us support the show. Where is it? It's right there. Sorry, I'm getting used to this. It's SOCL.WS/Patreon. That's where you can go and support us. A buck a show. Support this. Maybe we'll get on a regular schedule if we have more incentive. No, I'm joking. We have plenty of incentive. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. But maybe you guys can encourage us to do it some more. If you like the show, feel free to donate some money. We appreciate it. We want to hear from you. Social media addicts podcast at gmail.com. You can visit the show over here at socialmediaaddictspodcast.com. You can find me at google.com/plus Seth Goldstein. Barry, where can they find you?
At Google plus Barry Dalton, and of course in the other usual suspects, VS Dalton, Facebook, Barry Dalton 2, and LinkedIn, of course.
Always on LinkedIn, buddy.
And of course my world famous blog that my mom and dad are avid readers of. BarryDalton.com.
BarryDalton.com. Check it out. It's good. He's doing more videos now, which is interesting. You get to see that beautiful mug of his,
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Him, the face only a mother could love.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your wife. But look at this. It's a mug only a mother could love too. So
That's right.
there you go. Well, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll hopefully be on again in 2 weeks. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll get our act together and get these out more often. Maybe we'll try and do it weekly at some point, but let's just try and get bi-weekly done correctly for a little while. So,
You got it.
all right, Barry. Thanks so much, dude.
All right, see ya. Bye, everyone.